Sarah stood at gate 47, her boarding pass trembling in her hand, tears streaming down her face as she watched Daniel walk away for what she believed would be the last time. She had no idea that this goodbye, this painful, heart-shattering moment, would become the beginning of the greatest love story of her life. If you believe in second chances and the power of fate, stay with me until the end of this story. And if this touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe, because your support means everything. It was a rainy October evening when Sarah first met Daniel at a small coffee shop in Boston. She was a graduate student drowning in research papers, and he was a musician playing soft melodies in the corner. His guitar worn but his passion unmistakable. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and something shifted in the universe that night. He played a song just for her, and she stayed until closing time, talking about dreams, fears, and the strange beauty of life's uncertainties. For 6 months, they were inseparable. Daniel would write songs about the way Sarah laughed, and Sarah would leave little notes in his guitar case with words of encouragement. They built a world together, a fragile, beautiful world where nothing else mattered except the two of them. But life has a way of testing even the strongest connections, and theirs was about to face the ultimate trial. Sarah received the opportunity of a lifetime, a research position in London that could define her entire career. It was everything she had worked for, everything she had sacrificed for. But it meant leaving Boston, leaving her life, leaving Daniel. They tried to make sense of it, spending sleepless nights discussing long distance. But Daniel's music career was finally taking off in Boston. He had just signed with a local label, and relocating wasn't an option for him either. The night before her flight, they sat on the rooftop of her apartment building, watching the city lights flicker like dying stars. Daniel held her hand so tightly she thought he might never let go. He told her he loved her, that he would always love her, but he couldn't ask her to give up her dreams. Sarah wanted to scream, to tell him that he was her dream, but the words stuck in her throat like shards of glass. Instead, she kissed him, pouring every unsaid word, every broken promise, every shattered hope into that one moment. At the airport the next morning, they stood facing each other, two people who loved each other desperately, but couldn't find a way to make it work. Daniel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and whispered that sometimes loving someone means letting them go. Sarah nodded, though her heart was splintering into 1,000 pieces. She turned and walked toward security, forcing herself not to look back because she knew if she did, she would never get on that plane. London was gray and lonely. Sarah threw herself into her work, publishing papers and gaining recognition in her field, but every achievement felt hollow. She would walk past street musicians and feel her chest tighten, remembering the way Daniel's fingers moved across guitar strings like poetry. She dated other people, trying to fill the void, but every conversation felt like a translation of something that should have been said in a different language. At night, she would lie awake wondering if he was writing songs about someone new, if he had forgotten the way they used to dance in her tiny kitchen at 3 a.m. Meanwhile, back in Boston, Daniel was living his own version of hell. His music career was flourishing. He was touring, recording, living the dream he had always imagined. But success tasted like ash without Sarah there to share it. He wrote an entire album about her, each song a love letter he never sent, each melody a conversation they never had. His bandmates noticed the sadness in his eyes during performances, the way he would stare into the crowd, as if searching for a face he knew he wouldn't find. 2 years passed like this, 2 years of parallel lives that should have intersected but didn't. Sarah became a leading researcher in her field. Daniel became a rising star in the indie music scene, and both carried the weight of a love that never got its proper ending. Then, one frozen December evening, Sarah's phone rang. It was her mother, telling her that her father had suffered a heart attack. She booked the first flight to Boston, her hands shaking as she packed her suitcase. During the long flight, she thought about everything she had given up, everything she had run away from. Her father survived, but lying in that hospital bed, he looked at Sarah with wise, tired eyes and asked her a question that changed everything. He asked if she was happy, truly happy. And when she couldn't answer, he told her that life was too short to live in the past or the future, that the only moment that mattered was right now. Sarah stayed in Boston for 3 weeks, helping her mother and spending time with her father. On her last night before returning to London, her best friend convinced her to go out to say goodbye to the city properly. They ended up at a small venue downtown, and as fate would have it, Daniel was performing that night. She saw him before he saw her, standing on that small stage with his guitar, singing a song she had never heard before. But as the lyrics unfolded, she realized it was about her, about them, about a love that was supposed to last forever, but got lost somewhere between dreams and reality. Her breath caught in her throat, tears burning her eyes, and then, as if he could feel her presence, Daniel looked up, and their eyes met across the crowded room, just like they had that very first night. Time stopped. The music faded. Daniel's fingers froze on the guitar strings. For a moment they just stared at each other. 2 years of longing and regret and unfinished business hanging in the air between them. Then Daniel set down his guitar and walked off the stage, moving through the crowd like a man possessed, never taking his eyes off her. When he reached her, neither of them spoke. What was there to say that hadn't already been said in 2 years of silence? Instead, Daniel took her face in his hands and kissed her, and Sarah felt like she could finally breathe again after drowning for so long. The crowd around them erupted in cheers, but they didn't hear any of it. They were back on that rooftop, back in that coffee shop, back in every moment they had ever shared. Outside the venue, sitting on a cold bench under the winter stars, they finally talked. Really talked. Sarah confessed that she had been miserable, that every success felt empty without him to share it with. Daniel admitted that he had written hundreds of songs but couldn't bring himself to move on, that every woman he met was compared to the one he let walk away. They cried together, laughed together, and somewhere in that conversation, they both realized something crucial. They had been so focused on not asking the other to sacrifice their dreams that they had sacrificed their love instead. But this time, things were different. They were older, wiser, more aware of what really mattered. Sarah's research didn't require her to be in London permanently. She could work remotely, travel, collaborate from anywhere. Daniel's music had reached a point where he could tour internationally, record from different cities, build a career that wasn't tied to one location. The obstacles that had seemed insurmountable 2 years ago suddenly felt manageable, not because circumstances had changed, but because they had finally learned that love wasn't about choosing between dreams. It was about building new dreams together. Sarah extended her stay in Boston. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. She negotiated with her university, arranged a hybrid position that allowed her to split time between London and Boston. Daniel adjusted his touring schedule, learning to build his life around their relationship instead of in spite of it. It wasn't easy. There were challenges, arguments, moments of doubt. But this time, they faced everything together, communicating instead of assuming, fighting for their love instead of surrendering to circumstances. On the anniversary of that night at the airport, Daniel took Sarah back to the rooftop where they had said goodbye 2 years earlier. He pulled out his guitar and played the song he had been writing for the past year, a song about second chances, about finding your way back home, about love that refuses to die even when logic says it should. And then, with tears in his eyes, he asked her to marry him, not with a promise that life would be perfect, but with a commitment that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. Sarah said yes through her tears, and as Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, she realized something profound. That goodbye at the airport hadn't been an ending at all. It had been a necessary chapter in their story, a painful but essential journey that taught them both who they were individually so they could come back together as better, stronger versions of themselves. Sometimes we have to lose something to understand its true value. Sometimes we have to walk away to find our way back. Their wedding was small and intimate, filled with the people who had supported them through the hardest times. When they exchanged vows, they didn't promise forever, because they had learned that forever is built one day at a time. one choice at a time, one act of love at a time. They promised to choose each other, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Years later, sitting on that same rooftop with their daughter sleeping between them, Sarah and Daniel would look back on that goodbye at Gate 47 and understand that it wasn't the end of their love story. It was the prologue to something greater, a love that had been tested, broken, and rebuilt stronger than before. Because the truth is, the best love stories aren't the ones that never face challenges. They're the ones that face challenges and choose love anyway. So if you're going through a goodbye right now, if you're watching someone walk away and your heart is breaking, remember this: some goodbyes are just pauses, not periods. Some endings are really disguised beginnings. And sometimes the love you think you've lost is actually just finding its way back to you in a form you never expected but always needed. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope and love into the world. And remember, true love isn't about perfect timing or perfect circumstances. It's about two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. Thank you for letting me share Sarah and Daniel's story with you today. Until next time, keep believing in the power of second chances.